Well, it's another beautiful day in Chaco, out in my outdoor studio. Now, in the words of the beloved Scottish poet Robert Burns, in his Ode to a Mouse, he says, "The best laid plans of mice and men gang off to gley, often go astray." And I promised you last week that we would have Guy Hovis on this week. And we did a recording 2 or 3 days ago and had a great time, a great conversation, lots of laughter, lots of memories. We just had a wonderful time. And I played a couple of minutes on it just to make sure everything was okay after we got through. Then when he left, and I played the whole thing back to make sure it was right, it wasn't right. For the first time, my recording stuff had really messed up. And you couldn't tell anything about it. So it was just awful. And I hated to call him back and say, after all that time that we spent, we're going to have to do it again. But I said, in a way, Guy, if it's okay with you, there are a lot of things in there that we missed, I didn't bring up, and that I should have. And he said, I was thinking the same thing on the way home. There were some things I should have said and told you that I didn't tell you. So maybe next time. I said, well, let's schedule next time, and we did. We will do it again in July, and I'll make sure you know when it is as it gets closer. But we are scheduled to get together again in July, and this time I just apologize, but sometimes just things off glay. Yesterday was Memorial Day, and like most of the country, we offered our prayers up for those that are departed. And I thought I'd talk to you about one of them today that did not get killed in combat, but who was a very special soldier. And most of you have heard of him, but I wonder how many really know a lot of the details about this man. I'm talking about Audie Murphy, the most decorated soldier in World War II. And I thought I'd run some facts by you today just in case you didn't know, since it might be the appropriate time to do that. Audie was from Bern, Texas, born to a sharecropper family. He had 11 brothers and sisters. He was the oldest. His father left him when he was pretty young, and he had to assume the man of the house functions, and he had to quit school in the 5th grade and pick cotton at $1 a day to help support his family. Well, when he was 16 years old, his mother died, and he had to watch all 11 of his siblings be transferred out to the care of relatives, orphanages, foster homes, till only he was left. So he decided then, he was 17 years old by the time they all left, that he'd go and join the military. So he applied to the Marine Corps, and they turned him down. He was 5'5" and weighed somewhere between 110 and 130 pounds. There are different stories about his weight. But he was too little for the Marines, and they wouldn't let him in. Then he went and talked to one of the airborne divisions in the Army, paratroopers, and they wouldn't let him in. He was too little. So he and his sister got together, and they, let us say, changed his birth certificate from his age of 17 to 18, and he enlisted in the Army. And they put him in the infantry, where he fought in Sicily, Italy, France, and Germany, and collected, all told, 24 medals, which is a record. Now, the main thing that he got awarded the Medal of Honor for, and by the way, you are awarded the Medal of Honor. You don't earn the Medal of Honor or be given the Medal of Honor or seek the Medal of Honor. You are awarded the Medal of Honor. Nobody wants to try and win the Medal of Honor. And I'm going to read this just so that I get it straight, and maybe make a comment or two on the way. So this happened in France. And here is his Medal of Honor citation. Second Lieutenant Murphy commanded Company B, which was attacked by 6 tanks and waves of infantry. They say that there were about 250 Germans in these waves that they sent against him. Second Lieutenant Murphy ordered his men to withdraw to a prepared position in a woods area, while he remained forward at his command post and continued to give fire direction to the artillery by telephone. Now, I was in the artillery, and he became, as company commander, what is known as a forward observer. He's the one out there who directs artillery fire, and he's out front. Well, behind him to his right, one of our tank destroyers, this is a big vehicle, a tank destroyer, received a direct hit and began to burn. Its crew withdrew to the woods, and Second Lieutenant Murphy continued to direct artillery fire, which killed large numbers of the advancing enemy infantry. Well, with the enemy tanks abreast of his position, Second Lieutenant Murphy climbed on the burning tank destroyer, which was in danger of blowing up at any moment, and employed its .50 caliber machine gun against the enemy. He was alone and exposed to German fire from 3 sides, but his deadly fire killed dozens of Germans and caused their infantry attack to waver. The enemy tanks, losing infantry support, began to fall back. But his deadly fire killed dozens of Germans and caused everything to just sort of stop. Well, for an hour, the Germans tried every possible available weapon to eliminate Second Lieutenant Murphy, but he continued to hold his position and wiped out a squad that was trying to creep up unnoticed on his right flank. The Germans reached as close as 10 yards away, only to be mowed down by his fire. And I saw in another report where somebody on the radio radioed him and asked him how close the Nazis were to him. And he said, "Hold the telephone just a minute, and I'll let you talk to one of the expletive deleteds." So he still had his humor in the midst of all this, which is incredible. Well, he received a leg wound, but he ignored it and continued his single-handed fight until his ammunition was exhausted. He then made his way back to his company, refused medical attention, and organized the company in a counterattack, which forced the Germans to withdraw. His directing of artillery fire wiped out many of the enemy. He killed or wounded about 50 himself, and Second Lieutenant Murphy's indomitable courage and his refusal to give an inch of ground saved his company from possible encirclement and destruction, and enabled it to hold the woods, which had been the enemy's objective. Absolutely incredible. Well, he actually was wounded 3 times through the rest of his combat. And then got out of the Army at the end of the war. And when he left the Army at the end of the war, he had yet to reach his 21st birthday. So he was just a kid while all this was happening. Well, James Cagney, the movie star, contacted him and convinced him after the war to become an actor. And he acted in some 40 movies. But he was very open about a problem that he had. He called it battle fatigue. That's what it was called back then. Now we call it post-traumatic stress disorder, to the point where he had severe headaches, terrible, terrible nightmares. He'd wake up screaming at night from reports. And he finally got to the point where he had to have a loaded pistol under his pillow every night. Well, he was killed in a private airplane crash in 1971. And appropriately enough, this was in May of 1971, 2 days later, he was buried in Arlington Cemetery on Memorial Day. I thought you'd be interested in that little story. Story though it may be, that little piece of his autobiography. We had a lot of heroes during that war, during the wars that followed, and the wars that preceded. And hopefully we won't have to do that again. We pray that we don't. And on Memorial Day, we tend to thank God for those who did put us in the position now that we're in, which is to enjoy our freedom. Oh, and one little thing, a couple of things before I leave this time. There's a saying that I just saw by a very wise man named G.K. Chesterton. And he says this: the whole modern world has divided itself into conservatives and progressives. The business of progressives is to go on making mistakes. The business of conservatives is to prevent mistakes from being corrected. Is that smart or what? Another thing that I want to tell you before we leave is my little website is finally up. It's jimritchie.us. Can you see that? I like US better than com. I like it for two reasons. One, US might stand for United States. The other might stand for us, just me and you. jimritchie.us. My books and CD are on there, listed on it, so visit us if you will. And by the way, if you haven't already, I'd appreciate your clicking the subscribe button and the like button, and we'll see you again next week.